Hello and welcome to the Jackcast, your Swansea City podcast. Apologies for the little delay between our recent episodes, but yeah, real life gets in the way, as does the fact that maybe the Swans haven't had a game for a little while. But we are back now to discuss them, and I'm delighted to say that Matt is joining me to talk all things Swansea City. Evening, Matt.
Evening, Steve.
Right, we're going to start with the Millwall game, which feels quite a long time ago now, and I can't actually offer a huge amount of analysis on this one because I wasn't there. I was well, not at that moment, but I was in London to watch Oasis that evening. I was hoping to watch the second half in the pub somewhere, but unfortunately, the Ryder Cup, Man United playing Brentford, and Birmingham playing Coventry were all on the TVs in the sports bar at Marylebone Station. So yeah, there wasn't really a lot we could do about that. I was being kept informed of what was going on by a couple of people, yourself included. But the impression that I got from you was that we started really well, needed to sort of make our advantage count early on, which we did with one goal, of course. But then we faded really, and it was more of a frustrating afternoon. I mean, is that a fair comment?
Yeah, I think it's going back a few weeks now, but that's how I recall it. It did feel like we started off playing a lot more on the front foot. We've talked about this in recent podcasts and, of course, in the pub and stuff, where we said we need to start making teams fearful of playing against us at home. We need to start with a bit more impetus and a attacking threat, and we did that. And Potnik epitomised the form he's in at the moment with delightful little back heel from Ronaldo's cross shot. Um, but it was just a really bright start. But as with everything Swansea City, you know that we kind of get a goal and just stop, and it's the most infuriating thing because it seems to be ingrained in us. It's almost certainly a psychological thing. We don't put teams to the sword. It's so rare that we go and get a couple when we're in the momentum, get a couple more, and just make sure that even when you're always going to get the opposition have a spell, Steve, aren't you, where they're going to have a 15, 20-minute spell. But if you've got a couple of goals there and you've given yourself a little bit of a cushion, you can weather the storm there a bit, then you can afford to maybe let a player or two drop 5 yards deeper, try and soak up the pressure because you have something to protect. But all too often, we get the one goal lead, then all of a sudden we see that job's done and we let the opposition back into it. And, it's another story, familiar tale, and I'm afraid.
Yeah, it sounded like it. I mean, we've our home form hasn't been brilliant, really, has it? I mean, obviously, we did beat Sheffield United, but I mean, since then there's been a few draws, and obviously we'll come on
Mm.
to the most recent game against Leicester shortly. But it is frustrating, isn't it? I mean, Watford was the first one in that spell where we came back after a slow start. I mean, against Hull, obviously we blew it at the end, and then in this game we were in the ascendancy and again, didn't manage to get the 3 points. And I mean, if we want to be successful this season, can't afford to have too many results like that, really, because I mean, these are all you'd probably say these three as well are against teams that you wouldn't necessarily think would be challenging at the top of the table. So
No,
it's frustrating, isn't it?
it is, and they always talk about, oh, look back on May, you look back at May and stuff like that, and yeah, it might well come to pass that we have an upturn in form in the second half of the state season, and then do look back and rue some of the points we've dropped. Hull was a great example there of just stopped playing. We stopped playing. We invited so much pressure on that it was clear to everyone in that stadium what was going to happen in injury time. They equalised. It was obvious. We were just watching it. In fact, I think we were down the steps, Steve, weren't we? Ready to leave because I could see what's going to happen. And then obviously the goal goes in. I almost wanted to walk away before it went in because I felt like that was going to be the next thing we watched. And true enough. And Millwall, it's these kind of moments where we have to manage the game better, and they tend to be at the end of the game. Look at Birmingham a couple of weeks ago, or at the end of the first half. We have these moments where we just think, right, it's nearly time now, so we'll just stop playing. And on the brink of half time, They equalised from a set piece. It was really poorly defended. And to be honest, up to that point, I don't think Millwall offered a great deal. But we just stopped playing and invited them back into it. And yeah, the second half was a slog by comparison.
Yeah, it is frustrating, isn't it, to hear that we've been in the ascendancy and we haven't made it count really. But I mean, what about the incident with Eder at the end? I mean, should we have had a penalty? How did you see that, particularly at the time, and then looking back at the replay?
Eder, I can't remember his penalty
Or, or,
shout. I
or
remember
was it a
he
disallowed goal? It was something like that, wasn't it?
Eder had a disallowed goal.
That's what it is then.
Yeah,
Apologies, you
that
could
was a
tell I
disallowed
wasn't
goal.
there.
Now I haven't seen this back. I was actually in the South Stand with my kids, so I had a pretty good view of it at the time. And I felt like it was marginal. It wasn't clear whether the keeper had his hands on the ball, but it felt like one of those ones that as long as he's put pressure on the ball with his hands, even if it's not under control, if he's just put his hands down towards the ball, the refs are going to give it, aren't they? It's rare that the refs don't see something like that and then give it the other way. But this, there's a Potnick penalty shout, which was a stonewaller as well. So a couple of instances there where you could say, well, maybe they could have gone the other way. But Potnick was definitely a penalty. He does, having not seen a conclusive angle of it, I can't really say whether the ref made a mistake or not. But it looked like one of those which it thought one of them has got there maybe a fraction of a second before the other, and that's influenced the referee's decision. And I think the keeper might just have had a hand on the ball, and the refs are going to give a free kick. The keepers are so protected.
Yeah, I mean it's been a bit of a theme recently with some bad refereeing decisions, and
Mm,
yeah, obviously not necessarily with just the Swans, given what happened, in Cardiff the other night. But yeah, I mean, moving on, the next game was Blackburn.
yeah.
I think it's fair to say we really did not play well in this game. I mean, the result was great, but I mean, there weren't many positives outside that. I mean, the goal that we conceded was absolutely shocking, wasn't it? We just got carved apart, and then people not tracking runners, leaving people unmarked, and it was a really bad start from us, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a poor one. That was a really poor one. It was only overshadowed by the fact that Franco scored an absolute beauty just before half time, which was a welcome change to the narrative for us. But yeah, I felt really that we never really got out of first gear in that first half. We just kind of were going through the motion. And to be honest with you, it's another one of those games where you thought this this is there for the win for us because it was played between two poor sides. And thankfully, as we saw what happened in the second half, but ultimately it was one of those games again where you thought neither of these teams on the showing at Ewood Park would be in the mix at the end of the season. It was a poor game.
Yeah, it certainly was. And I mean, in the second half, I think we only had one shot, didn't we? And obviously, it turned out to be
Mm,
the winner. I mean, we've been quite critical of Sheehan subs, haven't we?
yeah,
And rightly so, in my opinion, particularly against Hull. I mean, they made no sense and they contributed to us throwing the game away. But I think on this occasion, you have to say they paid off. I mean, Eder has come on, and so was Cullen, and they both combined for what was the winning goal. And look, Cullen does have his critics, and he can be limited in certain situations, and he's on other occasions as well. He gets picked in positions that don't suit him, and that is
yeah,
just insane. Not just for club, I should say. Certainly at Wembley last week as well for Wales, but
yeah.
yeah, but one of his major strengths is he does know where the back of the net is. I mean, you could argue that he is the best finisher at the club, and he showed it there, didn't he? It was a wonderful strike after Ida set him up.
Wh- Whether you think Liam Cullen should be playing at this level or not feels immaterial to the wider argument of he certainly cannot function as a number nine. And this is something that we've done time and again where we put him in a position where he's been expected to what, win headers, hold the ball up, bring others into play. It's ridiculous. He's not got the frame, he's not got the build, he's not really got any key attribute of a number nine. When you look at where the best nines are, they're either good in the air, or they're quick, or they're strong. He's not got any of these things. So what do you expect him to do in those positions? What he does do well at is arriving late into a pocket of space. So he needs to play behind the front man if he's going to play in that 10 role and allow him to find that pocket of space because, yeah, like you said, he's certainly one of the better finishers at the club. And you can expect that if the ball comes and it's around that pocket just outside the area where the defenders have dropped in deep, then he's going to have a good crack at goal. And it's pretty much exactly what happened in that instance. It was another shambolic bit of defending, this time by Blackburn. And Ida was allowed to nonchalantly stroll up the pitch about 40 yards, wasn't he, before he squared it to Cullen. It felt like an eternity before anyone really put Ida under much pressure. Um, and it was a really cool, smart finish by him. And like I say, it was a poor game, which probably on the balance of it warranted a draw. I'm absolutely delighted with the win, and obviously doubly delighted that it had a little bit of tantrum of crybaby Todd Cadwell at the end as well, which was nice to see. But because I'm not the greatest fan. But yes, it was all in all. You've got those sorts of games. You take the points, you get out of Dodge, and that's pretty much what we did.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, they could have had a penalty at the end as well. So maybe that's where we got
Well,
one
that's
back.
it.
But you look at it and just think that we did win the game really with, you know, two good moments, you'd have to say, as you alluded to earlier. Franco's goal was a screamer, really, from a great ball
Mm,
from Timon. I mean, that will be a contender for our goal of the season, I would think,
mm.
at the end of season awards. And as I say, he does put a nice ball through for Cullen, who slotted home coolly as he does in those situations. So, you know, those moments were great. A lot of the in between stuff really wasn't, in my opinion. But
No,
look, at the same time, it's a good result, and you're always looking to build on that. Then, really, aren't you? So, it was a tougher game for us next, wasn't it? Against Leicester, obviously one of the relegated sides, a side with far bigger budget than us, but at the same time, one that was on a run of draws. You think back to last time they were in this division, they were, they came out of the blocks flying, didn't they? They must have had 20 points at least by this stage. I think we played them actually just after the international break. So the weekend coming up now, 2 years ago, and remember we ended up losing, even though we didn't have a bad game against them, but they were just flying. But I mean, they haven't been like that this year. But yeah, obviously, it was always going to be a trickier game for us, I think, than probably nearly every other fixture that we'd had so far. And we found ourselves behind early on, didn't we, from a really good goal from Jordan James. But I mean, before I come on to that, I mean, it was a bit of a strange team selection, wasn't it? I thought by Sheehan for that game. I mean, obviously, we do have a squad now, so there is the opportunity to rotate. I mean, Franco didn't play against Millwall. Obviously, he was back in then for the Blackburn game. But for this game, we saw Galbraith and Yalkoué on the bench. Cullen was in, Eon was in. It all just seemed a little bit strange to me, and I felt like his team selection didn't help us in the slightest, and it contributed to what was a poor performance generally, I thought.
quite negative, wasn't it? When you look at the starting
But
11, you've
but,
got
but could you
Stamp.
argue though that the Cullen playing as a 10 is a bit more positive, if you know what I mean? Because, for as much as I like our midfield players, there ain't a lot of goals there, is there?
No, no, you are right, and it is a fair point. It
But
could
I
be
don't,
argued.
the strange thing is for me, I'm not sure you do that against Leicester. Maybe you do that against Millwall in a game you're more expecting to win. You know the Leicester one's going to be a bit more challenging, and maybe you need to be a bit more solid, particularly early on. So that's one of the things I did find quite strange about it.
So what I've read and what I've heard from people who analyze the games and stuff like that, and very much like we are doing now, but they looking at Cullen's position, he wasn't really playing in the 10 role, which was, you know, a few of these Twitter accounts, and there are a few out there, you'll know that who they are, who go through the match footage and pick out clips and heat maps and all this. And they looked at Frank Cullen and they said he was actually pretty much a midfield player against Leicester. And that kind of led me to my initial comment about it being a bit negative. Because if you consider Cullen dropping deeper than perhaps you'd consider a 10 necessarily needing to, then you've got Franco Stamenic, Cullen in there. We know isn't as attacking and dangerous as Anusa. Um, so you put all that together, and it does feel a little bit like we were trying to maybe protect ourselves a little bit more. Maybe Cullen was put in a 10 role, but told to help bolster the midfield a little bit more. It didn't really feel like we had Rapotnik and Cullen up front together at any point, did it? It always felt like there was almost an overcrowding in midfield and Rapotnik left to fend for himself up there.
Yeah, it just didn't really make any sense, though, did it? I mean, why, if you're going to play, ask Cullen to do those things, you've got already got better players
Yeah,
at the club that will do that job. And why are you
yeah.
doing that against one of the better sides in the division? I mean, unfortunately for Cullen, he was in the same boat at Wembley, wasn't he? I mean,
Well, this is it. It's
you know, I don't
twice
understand it. Why are you asking the player to do these things? It's not going to go well.
twice in a week he's been asked to play a midfield role. And twice in a week he's left shown up to be not a midfielder. I mean, it's not. It's hard. I have been critical of Cullen, and I hold my hands up to saying, it is a kind of issue that I have. I'm not sure that he would necessarily be getting the minutes for another championship club if he wasn't a homegrown player here. So I feel like there's a little bit of that, but ultimately you cannot blame him if the role he's been asked to do is completely out of his comfort zone. And I feel like the last couple of times he's played, he thrived in that moment when he came on against Blackburn, and you saw him there doing what he does best. And then to be told to drop as deep as he did, and we got to assume he was told to do so because he was allowed to do it for the length of time he was on the pitch. And the same for Wales. You'd have to think there was some sort of tactical thoughts behind that, but I don't think he did well in either game.
No, I don't either. But I do think within reason, it's not his fault, is it?
No, I
It
agree
is
with you.
baffling. I mean, you look at, as we said, Galbraith and Yelkoué, and you know that they should be playing ahead of him in that position. And surely Jordan James should have been at Wembley. Ironically, the guy that did put Leicester in front. It's just very strange, isn't it? And you know, it didn't work. I felt in the first half we were particularly poor, and I don't think we did a lot in the second half. Really, it was only because Leicester sort of gave the referee an opportunity to give us a penalty.
Don't think
The
it was a pen,
situation,
mind.
well, you know what I mean, though, don't you? Like he's
Yeah,
dived
no, I
in
agree with
with
you. I
Galbraith.
for me, it's not a pen, but it's so good to see us get into positions where you can win the bad decisions because often we're the ones undone by bad decisions, but ultimately you're only going to get, do you know what I mean? You're only going to get a
Yeah,
penalty given against you if someone goes down in your box. If we never go down in the opposition's box, we're never going to get the opportunity to do so. So to have that given was almost validation for trying to go at teams and stop trying to, try and be too intricate with it. Let's get the ball and try and hurt teams with it. And I don't think it was a penalty. I just like to point out that though in that game, I'm talking about whether the team was the right one, but the subs that came on, Steve, were Anusa, Yalkoué, Benson, Galbraith, and Ida. Now, at least four of those you'd imagine would be in a shout to starting. So I don't think we necessarily played our strongest hand. I know we had a game 4 or 5 days earlier, but do you know what I mean? It did feel like we did maybe not go at Leicester in a way we perhaps could have if we wanted to.
yeah, I agree with you. It was a strange plan that really didn't work at all. And yeah, okay, when the subs have come on, it has made a little bit of a difference, but it would. There's some of them who are better players.
Yeah,
So, you don't really get much credit for bringing people on that should have been starting, do you? It's, it's just sort of obvious in that situation. But I think, again, what was frustrating was that we did then get ourselves back into the goal, either with his first goal for the club from the
mm,
penalty spot. But you're thinking then, oh, maybe we've got a bit of momentum going
mm.
forward here. There's going to be the next goal in the game. Why can't we get it? But it was as if it woke Leicester up and they turned the screw in us, and we honestly didn't do anything. So it's frustrating from my point of view that we've got ourselves back into it, and then it's come to nothing, and we've offered nothing. That's what annoys me. I mean, we were capable there of getting a result once we've
I
been handed
agree.
that lifeline, and you know, just nothing. And look, I know losing at home to Leicester is really not the end of the world. I mean, it's
Well, didn't they draw on something like three or four on the bounce
yeah, they
before
have,
that?
and look, and they are in the top six quite comfortably now. I think after that, but I mean, it's it's not so much the result that bothers me. It's the poor performance and just the
Yeah,
when the momentum has been handed to us, we've shown nothing. You'd expect if you get an equaliser like that and the crowd's up, you would expect that the next few minutes then you'd be having a bit of a go and they'd have to weather a little bit of a storm before coming back into the game. And it just didn't
it's
happen,
not
did
the
it?
Swansea way, is it, at the moment?
No, it's not.
It's a bit. I feel like at the moment, I whatever our style is, whatever it was under previous managers, I just want us to impose ourselves on teams. If it was if it was Tony Pulis football, do you know what I mean? If it was long throws, get it up to the big man, yada yada. I just want us to identify, have an identity, and play to that, rather than this kind of passive style that we have at the moment, which is let's wait for the opposition to do something, let's feel them out, and let's react to them. And I know that sounds a bit, but you know what I mean? Like, there's whether there's a right identity or a wrong identity, we could argue till the cows come home. But to have one, to have a way of playing, I think is most important at all. No matter what that way is, it's having a way, believing in a way, and executing that way against the opposition and giving them something to worry about, rather than you kind of just, trying to nullify their threats.
Yeah, it does feel like that, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know what we're trying to do in a lot of games, and that's what frustrates me, particularly when I look at the quality of players that we've now got. I just feel like we can be better than this, and I don't feel like we are being, and I don't really see us on the path to improving much either. That's what frustrates me. And I look at this division this year; it's weaker than it's been for a few years. I mean,
Yeah,
the teams that have come down, I've alluded to Leicester now, perfect example. They're not really. They didn't come out the traps this time, did they? They're very much
no,
in the pack, and some of the other teams that have come down aren't even in the pack at this stage. And there's another team that's on parachute payments that lost the playoff final last year that are bottom. I
yeah.
mean, this is a golden chance for a few teams, I think, and we should be thinking along those lines. And I feel like we're wasting a chance. That's what
There's
really
no,
frustrates me. I mean, we've the three games that we have won are against teams that are currently in the bottom four. And that
yeah,
is, look, you can't help who you play and stuff like that. But I think that does sort of show quite a bit. And I mean, you look at the Birmingham game as an example. They hadn't scored in four games, yet they've had 20 odd shots at a goal because we haven't really gone forward or anything like that. And you just feel like we should have more points. And even if we didn't have particularly more points, we should be playing better. We should be creating more opportunities. That's our big problem. We are one of the lowest for creating chances. We're quite low for scoring. XG low. It's not a shock, is it? That's what's frustrating. What we are seeing, the stats back it up, don't they?
yeah, yeah. Oh, we've seen them online with the lowest metric of on sorry, lowest on most of the attacking metrics there, where there's chances created, touches inside the opposition box, XG, as you said, are not like hounding data and stats and stuff, but those things, when they are taken in isolation, can be manipulated. But when you've got a whole side of the game, the whole attacking side, and we're bottom of all of them, well, that tells a story then. And I think what we're watching is playing out in that way. I don't think there's necessarily we're looking and seeing what we're trying to do and how we're trying to, I couldn't tell you how we were going to play against Southampton, not least in 3 or 4 games' time, because it doesn't feel like we really identify with any sort of style of play at the moment. But a lot of pundits as well, Steve, as we both have seen in the summer, have seen our business in the window and have touted us as the ones to watch. So we're not an unknown quantity here. We're not the plucky underdogs who've just come up and are going to give it a good go. We're now looking like a squad of players who can achieve something or can at least threaten to achieve something this season. And people are putting us, who look at the division as a whole, are putting us in the mix for a top six place. So I don't buy the fans' arguments that an improvement on last season is an improvement. I feel like the amount of money spent and the ambition shown by the owners needs to be met. You don't go and spend that sort of money and say, oh well, we finished, 14th last year, if we finished 13th this, do you know what I mean? It's not good enough to say we just do one step better because we've now shelled out quite an extraordinary amount of money for a Swansea City team not playing in the top flight, as far as I'm concerned. And I'd like to think the owners would want to see some return on that investment and at least see us in the conversation come, April, May time.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you look at it last year. In the end, I know obviously results did turn significantly once Sheehan had the job, and before
Mm,
that, we were nowhere near the top six. But we really didn't finish that far off it. It was just a handful of points in the end. So
yeah.
if you then take in, I don't know, a 15 million net spend or whatever it was, surely the aim then is to, get in the playoffs. You don't spend that type of money to go, oh, well, a slight improvement will do. I'm not buying that for 1 second. So, surely the aim now has to be to get into the top six, and rightly so, in my view. And I mean, it's very plausible that the manager will become a victim of his own success because the
Could,
ownership are entitled to turn around and go, well, you got us this many points, and with those players last year, we've given you all this. Now we should be getting more than what you're getting now. So it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out. And I mean,
mm,
we're still in a period here of where there's another international break to come. So I think there's probably 7 games in 22 days coming up, starting with Saturday. So things can turn one way or another quite quickly. And I mean, if you go on a bad or a good run, it can you can look at that table and it will look very different over the course of a few days, really. So it is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But looking ahead to the weekend, a trip to Southampton, not a happy hunting ground for the Swans, should we say? The only win was in 2015 with a John Joe Shelby screamer. Other than that, we've had about 7 or 8 visits there, and they've all gone terribly. I've been to quite a few of them. Though my last visit was 2017 on the opening day of the season when we somehow drew 0-0, even though they battered us. And I remember
yeah.
Paul Clement bringing on Kyle Bartley for Tammy Abraham, and a lot of the away end being disgusted, including me. And he gestured for people to calm down, and I was just thinking, calm down. We're literally putting up a brick wall against a team that we don't think are great here because we're not doing anything. And I think at that point, even on the opening day, I was very concerned about our prospects for the season. And yeah, we did end up going down, didn't we? But yeah, a different game this weekend, hopefully. We did play them in the Cup last year and lost 3-0. Hopefully it's going to be better this weekend, Matt. But they haven't had a great start to the season, have they? They did beat Wrexham on the opening day through a former player of ours, Ryan Manning. But he had one win since. And they're
Mm.
down in 17th. I mean, they would have been expecting better than that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, we're looking at the league table. They're finding wins hard to come by. They've got 5 draws in those opening 9 games, but certainly not the start they'd have hoped for. It's always difficult to see at this early stage, but what we talked about in the last part of the podcast is how these teams that have come down aren't necessarily starting off with starting off on fire. There's a real opportunity for teams this year to kind of make something of their season because you don't have what you usually have, which is the parachute teams being far and away, blowing the rest of the division away, and the rest of the ones trying to scramble for playoff places. It's really open this year, and Southampton being down in 17th really speaks volumes for that. I mean, what are we, nearly a quarter of the season gone?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't seen a huge amount of them, if I'm honest, but I did watch them play Portsmouth, and it wasn't a great game, if I'm being honest about it. But I actually thought Portsmouth were arguably the better team. So that probably says a lot for where Southampton
Mm.
are at. Because I mean, Portsmouth won't be fancied to do much this season. But I mean, you're looking at the other win they've had was away to Sheffield United, who've obviously had a an absolutely terrible start of the season. So yeah, not a great start for Will still on the south coast. You'd like to think that would give us an opportunity to potentially get a result. I mean, how do you think we're going to line up? I mean, I'm looking at Yom and Burgess particularly, and maybe Stamenic, who've had. I don't know if Stamenic actually has had a trip this time, but yeah, Yom I think only played either yesterday or today, and like I can't see him playing, for example. But do you think with the international break that will influence the team selection, because we would have had a few players obviously that have had a few games and travelled, several, maybe a few thousand miles, and then we'll have others who should be here and fresh.
Yes, and there's players as well who've gone and flourished in the international break, like Ethan Galbraith, who I think we should be needing should be using opportunities like that then to say, right, he's playing at the top of his game, as long as he feels ready and happy to do so, then let's get him on the pitch because as we saw in the opening 3, 4, 5 games of the season, a firing Ethan Galbraith is as good as anyone in this division, and probably plenty in the division above as well. So it can go either way, really. I'd like to think that we'll put our best foot forward, but as we said in the first part, I don't want us to be reactive to the opposition. I want us to go and actually show the opposition, well, do you know what? We have got a bloody good squad here. We've got Galbraith and Stamenic and Yalkoi in the middle, and we've got Vipotnik up front. We've got probably one of the best midfields in the division there. We've got a centre back pairing, which is as strong as any you're going to see at this level. We've got one of the best goalkeepers as well. The spine of the team is really, really strong. I'd like to see us show what we can do.
Yeah, so would I. I mean, you look at midfield, for example, and there's been much discussion, has there, over what is our strongest combination, really. So that sort of shows where we're at. Whereas before, it was always, this player has to play because the backup just
Hmm.
isn't there. Whereas it's very different now, and it feels as if there's genuine competition for places, doesn't it? So, I mean, what would you do? I mean, it feels as if Yal Koué is probably the one that's going to drop out. I do feel a bit sorry for him because I don't think he's done a huge amount wrong, but I mean, I would expect that he won't play, and it'll probably be Stamenic, Franco, and Galbraith, won't it?
Yeah, and I'm not particularly delighted about that because Yalkoi is for me, by some distance, our best traveller with the ball. And I think he gets the ball from those tricky positions in midfield up to the dangerous positions. He can travel with it, he can bring others into the play, and he also eventually drags 2 or 3 players over with him. Um, and we just need to use that better. I think he's a absolutely massive talent, and hopefully he continues to grow as the season goes on. But I want to see more of him because I feel like we've got a lot of players in there who can do the dogged work and kind of get a foot in. And if, like you say, if you've got Stamenic in there who can be a spoiler, and you've got Franco in there who can be like the little hound around the back four, just making sure everything gets tidied up. Galbraith in there is a very, very cultured player. So I'd love to see a combination of Stamenic, Galbraith, and Yalkoi, to be honest with you, because I feel like there's 3 different traits in there. You've got your ball playing midfielder, you've got your traveller. I mean, thinking of when we were at our best, Steve, and you look at the likes of when we had like a midfield of like Darren Pratley with Leon Britton and a another during that period of time, whether it be Stephen Dorby in front of the midfield or a Jody Gomez or someone, you'd have someone who could do the attacking thing. You had the legs of Pratley in there, and you had Leon Britton now cleaned up at the back. Those sort of 3 things complemented each other in that midfield, didn't they? And I'd like to see us try and get 3 different skill sets in the midfield there and try and complement each other, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, I think the same, really. And I don't think I know Franco did score a great goal the other week, but don't think he's had a brilliant start to the season. So,
No.
I'd look at it that way as well. But it's just great to be able to have these these options really. And with respect to Liam Cullen, he shouldn't be featuring in them in that position. So that's what all seems a bit silly about the other week, really. But
Mm.
I've touched on Ryan Manning obviously already, but there's also Flynn Downs and Nathan Wood playing for Southampton. So that horrible former player curse could easily strike, shouldn't it? I mean, Downs scored against us a couple of years ago, didn't he? I mean, he's not exactly somebody that finds the net often, so that was just typical, I suppose, wasn't it? But I mean, would you take a point from this game? I think it wouldn't be a bad result necessarily, would it? Although, maybe they're not as good as what you would have expected at the start of the season, as we've already alluded to.
I always think when you ask me this question, I try and think of like if I was an opposition fan, and much as we say, this is an opportunity to beat Southampton, Southampton will be looking at us thinking, teams like Swansea are the ones we've got to be beaten, especially at home from their perspective. So yeah, you'd have to say before a ball was kicked, a point would be, a decent result for us. But th that always relies upon you doing the business at home, which we haven't always done. So if you can't do the business at home, sometimes you need to pull off the scalps away from home to make up the difference. So um, it's there for us. If we go at them and give them something to worry about, then who knows what we can come away with. I'm just not confident that that's in Sheehan's makeup or his thinking right now. Um, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I think he's not going to go with the let's show Southampton what we can do outlook, and I think he's more likely to go and try and nullify Southampton's threats.
Yeah, that's what I think. To be honest, with you. I think that's by far the more likely outcome, really. So I can't see us looking to attack too much. I think we'll more be looking to spoil and stop the opposition from
Mm.
doing a lot, really. So, but I still think we have got a reasonable chance of a result at least. So we'll just have to see how it plays out, really, won't we? But yeah, Saturday at 12:30. It is a Sky game. I think we're taking over 1,000 down there. So that is a pretty good following, isn't it? And both of us will be in the crowd at St Mary's. So let's fingers crossed for a decent result. But we'll see. I mean, in the midweek, then we've got QPR. We have got Norwich as well on the weekend. We won't touch on that one too much, but QPR, they're actually sixth at the moment, so they've made
Mm.
a decent start to the season. Made quite a few signings over the summer. I mean, one was Kwame Poku from Peterborough, a player that we were linked with. But yeah, I mean,
Not
QPR
just
are
one player we were linked with either, was there?
no, of course, Richard Kone as well
Yeah.
is another one really, and another change of head coach with Julian Stefan, who is in the hot seat there. He was with Rennes previously, and then with Strasbourg as well, in both in France. So yeah, I mean that'll be an interesting one, won't it? I mean, we the last away game I think me and you went to was at QPR last year, particularly well, together anyway, and we had a decent win against them. I didn't think they were brilliant that day, but they've had a better start to this season, wasn't it? But I mean, we haven't won at home now, have we, since the middle of August? So we've got to be targeting 3 points from that one.
Gosh, yeah. You'd think so. And I mean, you have to respect the league table and what business QPR have done. But you look at how the season, you expect the season to unfold, and you'd still think you can take 3 points from QPR at home. Um, it's really a difficult one, and it's interesting when you look at this league table and see that our form, as well as being smack bang in the middle of the table in 12th, is 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 defeats, 10 goals scored, 10 goals conceded. Um, it is as average as you can imagine. Watford have done almost identical to us, a position above us, just with one more goal conceded. They've done their usual thing and replaced their manager this week, Steve. It's weird how some teams act quickly, some teams wait and see, some teams have more patience, isn't it? I'd be interested to see how we play, especially after these two games now, Southampton and QPR, whether we can then analyze where we are as a club and what our ambitions are for this season.
Yeah, it will. I mean, obviously, this, as I've already alluded to, this is such a hectic period. I mean, we're going to have a far better idea of where we're at coming into the next international break, and that could be, they're always danger zones for managers, aren't they? So, it can turn quickly, but we do, we're going to have to sort that home form out, aren't we? I think that's, that is a fair point. To have only one win at home in 5 games, I mean, it's just nowhere near good enough, even for a team that was, if we're going to finish in the bottom half, you'd always be disappointed with that, wouldn't you? So, we need to step it up and improve that, I would say, quite drastically, really, don't we?
Yeah, look, we've moaned about the attendances at the stadium and why fans aren't coming back, but you've got to make it a place where people want to come to as well as everything else. So um yeah, home form, make people believe that, we can do anything. We're at home, let's entertain, let's show what we can do. And um there's no better chance to do that than when QPR come to town. And they hopefully be a good crowd. And you know maybe the start of something promising, because I do think this squad, and I do keep saying it, is the makeup of one that should be there or thereabouts in around the top six at the end of the season. And November, as you say, it's an interesting time of year. If you're going to make that decision, then whether or not you're going to stick with your manager until January, or if you're going to make the change, you're going to make it so that you can prep any new manager for a January transfer window and let them see what they like about the squad and stuff. Not that I think we're going to do much business in January anyway after our summer dealings, but it's always one of those times of year where you think, ooh, maybe they could do with a win just before the international break.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. And I can't see us doing much in January, although, I mean, we haven't discussed it, but Josh Key's form hasn't been great and he doesn't really have a lot of competition, does he? So we
No.
might be looking to do something there. But on the whole, we're not going to do a lot, are we? And to be honest, why should we? We've done a lot of business now. So it's down for the manager to get the best out of what he's got, and that's the point of it, really. But before we go, we will touch on the recent international break. I mean, Wales playing a quite ridiculous friendly at Wembley, in my opinion, where
Yeah.
there was really nothing to gain. It's actually harmed our chances now in of a potential pot for the playoffs. So not only was it pointless, it's now a hindrance as well, and the game itself was terrible. I mean, I'm not sure if you managed to watch the whole game, Matt, but I actually left on 82 minutes from Wembley, and I had my head in my hands for most of the game because it was barely a contest, even from the first few minutes. Really, was it? It was, yeah, a miserable night. Let's put it mildly.
Oh, I stopped paying attention at 3-0, if I'm honest. I felt like we talked before the game that it was a crazy decision to do it, and whether it was Bellamy's call or whatever, it was just the implications of it were far too severe to do some sort of throwaway game like that, which could have cost us the playoff seeding and stuff. It felt like we'd kind of gone into the game as well, and we had that massive, massive game coming up against Belgium. And you want to pick a confidence boosting sort of game. You don't want to pick one where you're on a hide into nothing. Um, it was just poor from start to finish, and England made light work of us. And my only relief is that England didn't go ahead and make a statement that night, because if they wanted to score seven, they probably could have scored seven, and that could have been lorded over us for generations. Could have been talking about that in 30 years' time. So thankfully they just settled with what they had, and um, and got out of town. But I mean, for as far as we're concerned, as far as Wales is concerned, it was just a horror show.
Yeah, it really was. We were just far too easy to score against, and you know, um, it did continue really into Monday as well, which was even more frustrating. But yeah, it was just really disappointing, and you feel as if we got away with three, partly because they slacked off, and
Mm.
This thing could be about us improving. But I mean, I did obviously I because I was at the game, I didn't see the comments, but Roy Keane apparently said that it was like an FA Cup tie of a Premier League team against a lower
Yeah.
league team, and it's very, very difficult to argue with that. Um, and that we should be embarrassed. That's the simple truth of it. But I think there was only one man in Wales that wanted the game, and yeah, I think it was just. I think Bellamy, in truth, needs to start realizing the reality of the situation, which is that Wales are not as good as we used to be we don't have the players that we've had before. Um, there's nothing really for me about finding out where we're at. We know where we're at, and we need to, rather than just trying to go about it playing this way where the high risk stuff. I'm not saying we can't do that within reason, but you also have to bear in mind the opposition and realize that if you play that type of game, generally the better team is going to beat you because you're going to leave too much space and concede too many goals. And that's what happened on Monday, wasn't it? I mean, Monday was frustrating from my point of view because we started really well in the game, scored a really nice goal from Joe Rodon with a header. And
Yeah.
then the opposition, they've got this soft penalty, which I'm not really buying, but they've done nothing to that point. They've scored it, and it's turned the game completely, really, isn't it? After that, they created so many chances, and that was the problem. So I do have a little bit of sympathy for us because I think that was harsh, but you can't just allow like you look at the second goal, for example, Doku. He hasn't given up on a ball that looked like it could be a lost cause, but it's held up on the pitch. He's put a ball in. Mania, great finish, but it just felt like we weren't tracking people, not working hard enough. And Bellamy did say something afterwards about like he knew the threat from Doku because he'd been with him at Anderlecht, but said he still wanted to play this way. And this is almost as if to say this arrogance of, well, this guy's really good and we know he'll hurt us, but I think we can, even with that, we can still win. And it's like you've got to be thinking, you've got to nullify the better players of the opposition when they're as good as that. I mean, I can't just accept this thing of, you just, the threat is what it is. You've got to do better than that, haven't you?
And the thing is, the Bellamy style as it's coming through isn't we don't do enough. We haven't got a number nine, right? Worthy of the shirt. Let's be honest. So without that, without a talismanic striker, we need to be harder to score against. And it's increasingly becoming apparent that this is the equivalent of giving Ange Postecoglou the Nottingham Forest job. A team that last season was built on defense and given an attacking manager who had no idea about defense. It feels similar to that in that Bellamy wants to attack. We don't have the tools to attack. We're not an attacking sort of team. We were built, our greatest time, our greatest era was based on a solid defense. So the song about five at the back, it was about being difficult to beat and allowing those individual moments and those chances to come about. But we seem to be kind of on the front foot, playing a high line, playing loose in possession, and teams like Belgium, I mean, they're going to pick you off. Um, the World Cup feels a far cry away at the moment, Steve. I don't know how you feel, but it almost feels like there's a lot that Wales need to do to ensure it doesn't turn into a repeat of Qatar, and that is, as horrible as it got, really. But also, we need to be a more solid outfit before you go and play the big boys.
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, it's look, I admire the fact that we want to try and play football, and look, there just should be this happy medium. I thought Page was a coward basically and too
Yeah.
negative, but then you also don't want to go the other way and just basically say, right, we're going to play this way, and we are going to leave gaps, and we're going to hope that it doesn't cost us, but it will against the better teams. It's obvious, isn't it? So. There's no reason why from my point of view, maybe what we should have done is played Chris Mepham instead of I'm trying to think of maybe Sorba Thomas, and then
Mm.
played like this more of like a Nuno formation of a back five. Then you play two in midfield, and you play two wingers, and you play someone up front. I mean, if
Yeah.
you do that, you have at least then got one extra person back, and it should, in theory, mean you're a bit more solid, shouldn't it? Rather than like a 4-2-3-1 against a team like that, and you're leaving gaps. And the truth is, I actually don't think Belgium are that great
They're
anymore either.
not.
They've certainly
No.
faded, but going forward, they're still more than a threat. But I do think defensively, they're really not great. I mean, the Belgium of old, we would never ever have come from 3-0 down to go to 3-3 against them as we did in the summer. So it does tell you that you can get joy against them, but you can't give people like De Bruyne and Doku the time and space to kill you because that's exactly what they're going to do. So we just need
But
to be there's a happy medium, isn't there? I think that's what I'm trying to say.
no, you're absolutely right. I completely agree with you. And I come back to something I leveled at the Swans a short while ago about the game management and how you do sometimes have to be savvy in those moments in the second half where Wales are applying the pressure, getting at Belgium, threatening to really create something and probably get an equaliser. And Belgium were time wasting, they were feigning injury. There was one horrible situation where there was a blatant dive essentially that holding his face when there was no arm anywhere near him. And I just feel like situations like that, you play the game, you kind of manage the game then. They broke it up, they made it difficult to build any momentum. And then an absolutely horrific moment from Jordan James has ended the game as a contest, ultimately. But up until that point, it was we were still in that game. We should have been in a better position than we were because of the situation that we'd created for ourselves in the first half. But ultimately, we were still in with a good chance of getting something out of it. But it's moments like that. It's not managing the game correctly, and you simply you just cannot legislate then for what Jordan James does. But ultimately, it comes down to these patterns that how Belgium tried to disrupt the rhythm by going down, trying to be clever with the way they approached the game then. And then that's with a moment of stupidity. It's almost like a mature team versus a naive team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. We were naive, weren't we? I mean, like you say, it did feel like early in the second half we had some momentum, and
Mm,
they did just disrupt it, didn't they? With those little things that they go down in those situations, and then they take a while to come back up. And it's the clever thing to do, isn't it? Just disrupt the opposition's momentum while they're on top. And look, we unfortunately we are naive. It's as simple as that. I do still think there is a chance to qualify. I mean, look, surely we are going to go to Liechtenstein and win. I mean, if we don't win there, I mean, God,
yeah.
I dread to think what the reaction will be. But Macedonia clearly got a good, have drawn with Belgium twice now. I mean, if you look at the stats, they clearly got a little bit lucky. But I'm going to assume that the keeper must have had a decent game as well. But I mean, but they're obviously going to come to Cardiff and do the same thing. So that's the difficulty then. Whereas if Wales don't win against Macedonia and don't win the two games, they're going to be in the bottom pot for the playoffs because it'll be a Nations League playoff place as opposed to a second place one. And I mean, if you end up in that, you're going to end up away to someone like Italy, and you can forget it then. But I think if we do finish second, we do win the two games, like we might be a pot one or a pot two team, there still would be a chance. Now, again, I do feel like recently, when it comes to these playoff draws, we've been a little bit lucky, to say the least. I mean, we haven't been lucky to be at
Yeah.
home in a semi-final, but on both of them, then the final has been at home, and you've had Ukraine at home, and you've had Poland at home. Now, to have a chance to go to a tournament, if you're offered home games against those two before a ball is kicked,
Mm,
for us every time. You've got to take it. Now, you know it's going to be challenging, but the fact is, you could have much worse. And we could have had Italy or Portugal, I think, particularly in the World Cup one. I mean, if you get one of them, you're in serious trouble, aren't you? Whereas against the other two, you do have a genuine chance. So I'm not going to write us off entirely at this stage, but we've got to become a bit more streetwise and just know that in certain moments you've got to take less risks and do what you need to do to win a game rather than anything else. Because I could have seen us, right? 1-0 up the other day. It was never going to end 1-0 because both teams are poor defensively. But I think rather than, for example, just trying to kill the game, I could see us taking risks and going for a second. And you're just thinking it would be an insane thing to do. And then you could get caught. So I think
yeah.
that's what we need
Yeah.
to learn, really, isn't it? I mean, I'm not sure we're going to because the manager just seems intent on playing this way, doesn't he? And regardless of the consequences. But it's annoying because I do think Bellamy does have the makings of a good manager. But yeah, he certainly has his flaws as well, doesn't he? A bit like the man who's just left Rangers, really. But we can't end this without talking about the visitor on the pitch at the Cardiff City Stadium. that was highly amusing, wasn't it? Where I think it was about half an hour left, and I was in the Canton stand, and I could see this little animal running on the pitch, and just thinking it's a rat, and yeah, I think Cardiff are not going to live that one down in a hurry, are they?
Oh, one of the locals was upset, weren't they, with the score? Um, I did laugh. I did laugh, and yeah, and rightly so. I didn't think Robin. I thought Robin Shaw had retired, but no, I'm only joking. It was funny. I think if it had happened down here, I'd had my head in my hands because I knew it would be replayed over and over. So, absolutely, let him have it. Cardiff, full of rats, town of rats, and they've seen it on international TV now, so there's no real surprise there. What's the song go like, Steve? Looking gutter for something to eat, or
Yeah, I think that
you
might be
know
a bit
what? You know
louder
what?
next time you play them after that. But
Oh, you can't
yeah,
live it
they
down.
yeah, no, that's the thing. If it happened in a Cardiff game, we probably wouldn't really get much wind of it. But the fact it's happened in a Wales game when everyone's watching is yeah, they won't get away with that one in a hurry. So yeah, it did make me laugh, and I think I'm sure most of the people listening to this found it amusing as well. But we will wrap the podcast up there for this week. Big thanks to Matt for joining me. We should be back next week. Obviously, there will be a quick turnaround because of the QPR game, but we are going to aim to record something on Thursday evening, hopefully. So maybe out then on Friday. But as ever, big thank you for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed, if that's the right word. But yeah, fingers crossed for a better week this week and some positivity for us to talk about on next week's pod. But yeah, thank you for joining us, and bye for now.